On July 9th, 1981, one of the most influential games of all time was released in arcades around the world, Donkey Kong. Developed by Nintendo, this game established a firm base for the games to come in the future, but has almost ever since faded into obscurity and irrelevance. But as a lot of us know by now, this key point in Nintendo's history would lead to all of the other games that came after it: Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, and even a little more recently with Mario Odyssey. This of course needs no introduction, as the Nintendo franchise has grown to be arguably one of the biggest companies in the gaming scene for audiences young and old. But what some people don't know, however, is that this game has a very strange connection to one of the most popular shooters of all time, Call of Duty. Now I know this may seem weird at first. There are almost no relationship between the two at face value, and you would be completely right in saying that. One is a child-friendly company that emphasizes chasing Koopa Troopas and rescuing princesses, while another has you shooting at each other on a battlefield or going deep into the horrors of zombies maps on maps like Verrückt. However, where both of these franchises shine, and a reason why some of the games haven't died out yet, is because of the fan-created content. Both communities thrive off of making things for others, whether it be new ways to play Mario like not collecting coins or doing a rainbow perk challenge on Call of Duty Zombies. So the real question is, how did this connection develop? Well, let's take a deeper look into the history of the strange relationship between Nintendo and Call of Duty Zombies. Before we take a look at where Call of Duty Zombies comes into the equation, I think it's important that we see the history of Nintendo and Call of Duty as a whole. As some of you know, Nintendo has some history of approving questionable games to be released on some of its consoles. For instance, there are multiple Mortal Kombat games that were released on the Game Boy. That should be enough said, but if it isn't, please tell me if this even looks playable. Going back to the 90s and early 2000s, the Nintendo 64 was just recently coming off of an extreme success for Nintendo, especially since there were hit games on the consoles such as Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, and Banjo-Kazooie. With this extreme success, the pressure was on to create a console that would exceed the standards of the N64, and Nintendo began to work to create such a thing. After a couple years of hard work on Nintendo's end, on September 14th, 2001, the GameCube was released. However, the unfortunate reality of this situation was that the GameCube did terrible in sales for Nintendo compared to its new rising competitors in Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft Xbox with their more realistic and violent games. Nintendo saw this failure and, like any other game company would, offered to put some of their games on the Nintendo consoles. And 3 years after the release of the GameCube in 2004, the first ever Call of Duty game was released on a Nintendo console. Call of Duty Finest Hour was released on GameCube consoles, and surprisingly, it actually ran even better on the GameCube than it had previously on the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. Performance was still what you would expect, however, and Nintendo's reluctance to embrace the internet led to it missing out on the online multiplayer game mode. Call of Duty Big Red 1 also releases on this console, but by the time 2005 rolled around, that purple cube was almost finished anyways, and Call of Duty just kind of let it die. By the way, if you haven't heard of any of these Call of Duties before, don't worry, cause neither have I. With the GameCube's decreasing support and sales, Nintendo bounces back and releases another console, the all-known portable DS. The performance on this thing was obviously not all that great, but the portability and ability to run 3D games made this thing a console to remember. Call of Duty releases a multitude of games on this console, but the most important one for this video is the Black Ops 1 port for the DS. This game, launched in 2009 and developed by N-Space, was a very clunky game as expected, with almost horrendous controls. However, it had a surprising amount of content behind it. This game featured a fully fleshed out campaign, a multiplayer with an online feature, and most importantly, zombies. This zombies mode was extremely unique to that of the original Black Ops 1. Instead of launching with the regular Kino der Toten and 5, this game launched with 4 maps that were unique to the console. The 4 maps were House, Facility, Temple, and can't overlook, and each of them actually were somewhat interesting and impressive. The mode in this game was extremely difficult, however, as you could go down simply by being touched by these zombies once, leading to some turning away because of the difficulty. I made an entire video about this game, and if you would like to check that out, I'll leave it in the description where you can go and see all the details about it if you wish. Moving on, Nintendo released every single game from the original Modern Warfare to Modern Warfare 3 on this handheld device, and every single one of these pretty much felt the exact same if I'm being completely honest. However, at the same time as some of these releases, the Wii has developed and reached unprecedented heights in sales. As all of you know, the Wii was an obvious success for Nintendo as a franchise with releases such as Wii Sports and Mario Kart Wii. Once again, Call of Duty releases Black Ops 1 on this console, and unlike the DS, Kino der Toten was here to stay. The gameplay for the Wii was extremely different, however, forcing you to use the motion control feature that the Wii so heavily advertised. But besides that, not many differences were made in this port of the game, and it could probably hold its own, especially compared to the DS port of this game released around the same time. The only key differences in the Wii was that, for whatever reason, the AUG was a wall buy in front of the stage, which is just like the weirdest thing ever. It's so random, but you know what? I respect it. And for whatever reason, the fire trap acted very weird as well in the room with the MPL. Usually, if you were to step in the fire trap in the original Black Ops 1, it would hurt you and eventually kill you pretty quickly. However, for whatever reason, the fire trap does not do any damage to you while you are standing in it, and it's pretty impressive, I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately, that is the only map that featured in this game, with no DLC maps being featured, or even 5, which usually comes with the game at launch. Call of Duty releases on Nintendo consoles then reached a halt with the 3DS, but was eventually revived again with the Wii U. Black Ops 2 and Ghosts were released on this console, with Black Ops 2 having all of the features present in its launch map, Transit. I actually own a copy of Black Ops 2 on the Wii U, and I'll just be one to say that the gameplay experience really isn't all that different. The other survival maps were also present, with Town, Farm, and Bus Depot being present, as well as the Grief mode. But however, once again, no further DLC content was present for this game. So that means no Die Rise, but was that really a bad thing? Call of Duty Ghosts, although it never featured zombies, also never received any DLCs, so Call of Duty on Nintendo consoles was pretty much just dead. However, not all Nintendo content for zombies was featured on their consoles. With the introduction of custom maps on the PC version of World at War, countless Nintendo-themed maps were made, including Bowser's Castle, as well as the original Mario Bros. Series made into maps. Although not directly related to Nintendo, many videos were constantly made about these custom maps, especially from creators such as You OST. With the reintroduction of custom maps in the Steam Workshop for Black Ops 3 Zombies, the Nintendo spread of content just seemed to continue. Even more maps were made reflecting Nintendo games, with Mario maps being a prominent topic of maps that are made constantly. And while these maps most of the time are really poorly made, it still provides a fun experience, at least for the first time playing, and some members of the community rely on these maps for content. Fortunately, or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, the last ever Call of Duty Zombies game to release on a Nintendo console was Call of Duty Ghosts. However, it may be making a comeback. Many are saying that the Switch could potentially see Call of Duty games in the future, and while that might be great for portability, for me it just sounds like a terrible frame rate and horrible graphics. The relationship between these two games is definitely a crazy one, and the main majority of reasons they were connected in the first place was because of the community. With the countless number of Call of Duty games released on Nintendo consoles, it is a shame that we did not see any other zombies modes in any of the other games besides Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. However, the innovation the DS brought was a step in the right direction and a appreciated feature. While I would never pick playing Black Ops 1 on the Wii or DS over the Xbox or PlayStation, it is truly interesting to see how Nintendo developed their games around their devices. Thank you guys for staying by. I know this is a crazy topic of discussion, but it is kind of true in some ways. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.